Hi, I'm Eric Lubau, and welcome to Beyond the Belt. This is a conversation with Gorka Uztarroz, a black belt out of Paris, France. Gorka is an artist who likes to focus most of his creative energy on comics and posters. He also works for a medical repatriation company with some interesting stories. I hope you enjoy our chat. Gorka, thanks for being here, man.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Can you just do me a favor and pronounce your name because I know I'm going to get it wrong, but I want everyone to hear it said correctly.
Okay, so I know how to pronounce it right in French. So it's Gorka Uztarroz. And in English, it always sounds a bit weird, like Gorka.
Yeah.
Gorka Uztarroz, I suppose, but Gorka, as you feel it, it's not a problem. I'm used to it.
Then I'm going to go with Gorka because that's about as close as
Gorka,
my
yeah, perfect.
shitty American accent can do. Cool. So tell me what it was like for you to get your black belt.
Uh, a bit paradoxally, it was not so much a big thing because it was the more I was approaching it and the less I was idealizing it. You know, when I was a white belt, I was, wow, it would be so cool to be a black belt. It's incredible. And then you get your blue belt and your purple belt, and sometimes you give trouble to black belts, older ones, and you realize, oh, they're not some kind of ninjas. And you go to brown belt and sometimes you get tapped by blue belts. And so the more I approach the black belt, the more I was saying, yeah, it's not something so it was cool. It was something I accomplished, but I was not. It had lost a bit of its magic. It was less magic, less a big thing. So yeah, okay, I'm gonna have a black belt. Okay, I'm gonna still keep training and yeah, not so much a big thing for me.
So when you got it, you sort of just felt like, yeah, no, I'm here. This is okay.
Yeah, because maybe just I don't know, one day before I got tapped by a blue belt, and so it was like, uh, and you always feel a bit. I don't know about you, but when you get a belt, I felt the need to feel legit in my belt. And when I got the black belt, I said, okay, now the work starts. Now I got to work now to feel legit. Every time I got a new belt, I wasn't feeling legit right away. So I got the black belt, but and you got to grow into it, and so I think it took me maybe 2 3 years to to start feeling a real black belt.
Was there
If
like a moment that you had where you're like, I feel it now? Was it like a specific, do you have like a role or a moment, or was it
well,
just,
for me, the benchmark, it was always like if I'm able to tap someone in competition at in my uh, belt level, at least I'm not a fraud, like if I go to a competition on a black belt competition and I tap someone, maybe I'm there. Maybe it's not so irrational to be this belt. So competing in black belt and having results, losing and then winning a bit and then tapping some people, I'll say okay, maybe I'm a black belt after all. So yeah, but it's just for myself. I know it can be for everyone, but me, I link it to competition because I have to link it to something. It's an easy way to see where I'm at.
does that mean that for yourself, you were kind of like walking around for the first year or two, like, I don't really know if I'm at this level yet?
Yeah, because when here in France, like you can go to other clubs and open mats. It's not like there is no like this closed mind thing of in Paris. Everybody knows everyone. You go to other clubs, you're invited to open mats, and everyone is cool with everyone. So you go to other clubs and people don't know you, and you got like blue and purple belt, and they see a black belt they don't know, and they start, it takes a knife. Okay, and so and you get your ass kicked by some guys on the open mats, and so sometimes you feel down. I haven't represented well my belt, and it's not so much important, but yeah, at sometimes I felt I didn't deserve it.
So, how did you deal with that feeling? Like, how did you deal with the feeling of not just maybe at black belt, but at each one of the belts where you didn't feel legitimate? Like, what did you do about that?
I choose to put it aside. Okay, well, it doesn't matter. Uh, right time I'm not feeling it, but I gotta. Maybe later it will click. And the way I dealt also was go to competition. Competition is our ultimate test. I understand not everyone wants to do competition, but for me it was like a practical way to put it to the test and to see if I was more or less on that level. So I competed a lot, yes.
So did you compete all the way, like from white belt all the way up to black belt, and I assume you're still competing?
Yes, yes, yes. And truth is, I cannot really understand. I understand it, but for me, it's hard to understand how you can practice jiu-jitsu and not compete. It's such a sport based on what works or not doesn't work. You can only know if it works in competition because in training, maybe the opponent is tired, is hurt, is trying some new stuff. In competition, there is no excuse. So for me, I really relate jiu-jitsu to competition.
I mean, I'm someone who's never competed in jujitsu, and I probably never will compete. And, for me, it's not about does this work? It's about am I enjoying myself? And so, for me, the open mats are sufficient competition in the sense that, like, I can test it out. And if it works for me, great. And if I decide I'm not enjoying myself, then I'm fine to just be like, no, we're good here. I can sit on the side. Like that, I don't feel like competition is a thing that I need to feel good about jujitsu.
I agree. That's why I said it was for me because I know some people that kick my ass. I don't compete. They make me feel like like the worst practitioner ever, and they never compete. So, but it's just for me. It's something for how I work. This works for me. But I understand.
One of the things that you had said to me was that when we were chatting, like before the interview, like before the conversation, you had said that like jujitsu changed your relationship with making mistakes. And so, I'm just curious like how that happened and what that means to you because that's like a pretty intense statement.
Yes, I related to arts and I draw to my drawing because when I was drawing at the beginning, I was over obsessing with the perfection. I wanted to do a drawing and I started it like let's say I draw something, a monster, a guy. Okay, the head is good. But the hand, I didn't draw the hand like I wanted to, so I gotta start over again. And when I start again, okay, the hand is good, but now it's the face. The face was better the first time, and so I was redoing my drawings sometimes up to 10 times and losing the interest, and then the more I was redoing it, the worse it was until I was disgusted with my drawings. Doing jiu-jitsu and doing again competition, losing in competition made me understand that there will be another match. I lost, okay, no big deal, there will be another one. And so this is not my last match. I can try to do better the next time. And then it was like an epiphany. Oh, but that's the same thing with my drawing. I made a mistake, but my last drawing. Let's just finish this one. Like I got to finish my match, and my next drawing will be better, and I will learn from it. And so I stopped overthinking, and I made mistakes, and I accepted to go along with it and trying to find a way to make it work and stop over obsessing about doing mistakes yeah, that was more or less the relation I found between the two.
Did you find that while you were doing that in training, like in regular sparring, that the mistakes just didn't matter, or it only mattered in competition? Those mistakes only mattered in competition because you felt like pressure around.
I associated myself personally more with competition with training, regular training. I'm really now completely relaxed. I have fun, and if I do a mistake, it's funny. If I do some stupid move, and the people got advantage. Sometimes I'm laughing about it, and I really have got zero stress in regular training, losing to people. But it was with a stake of competition. For me, it mirrored the stake of producing something. You know, it was maybe the same as sketching. Sketching will be training, and competition will be producing the final piece of art. And the mentality changed when you're sketching. All the people who draw, not all, but a lot of people say, when I sketch, my drawing got a lot of energy, and when I go to do the final piece, it feels rigid. I've lost the energy because I'm overthinking. I'm over controlling every movement. There is not some of not the same flow as when you're sketching. Yeah, there is this parallel for me between competition and the final piece of art.
Do you find yourself like obsessing over the final product when it's the competition? Because you talked earlier about like obsessing about that final product and it being like rigid, but do you find yourself obsessing over the competition in the same
Less and
way?
less, no, less and less, and the more I compete, and the more I'm focusing on having fun while competing. I'm not a pro, I'm a hobbyist, so I know I'm never gonna be the next world champion, never gonna be the next European champion, never gonna be the next French champion. I'll take some wins there, some losses there, but now it's really enjoying the competition, enjoying the getting out of the comfort zone, and enjoying the stress of competing, enjoying the process. I'm having more and more fun every time.
That's actually really beautiful that like you've converted to enjoying the process. I mean, you had told me you got pretty obsessive about jujitsu for a long time, and
Yeah.
then something happened around brown belt. Like, what happened at brown belt that you were able to be less obsessive and now enjoy the process?
So I don't know if there was like a precise moment, but around the end of my purple belt days and brown belt days, I was like sometimes going to training feeling forced. You know, like I used to train for a hobbyist. For me, it was like I was almost 40 years old, 4 or 5 times a week. And you got to deal with well, your personal life and your work and also drawing and everything. So sometimes I didn't enjoy it anymore, but I still kept going. You know, I got to progress. I got to progress. I'm not training, but they're training, so I'm gotta step up, step up. And at one moment, I don't know, it clicked a bit, and I say, okay, if I go less, maybe I will enjoy it more. Uh, and also I relate this also to competition because sometimes I used to train right until the day before the competition. Yeah, I want to maximize the training. But I realized I was performing better when I left like 4 or 5 days of no jiu-jitsu before competition. Like it has to become a lack. I was craving jiu-jitsu and so I was able to take pleasure in the competition because it was 4 days without training. So I realized sometimes the lack thereof is part of so enjoying it. And
Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
yes, and what you say, like you say, you focus on enjoying it. That's also now I train only 2 3 times a week, and I just spent a day without working, and I didn't train a whole week, and I wasn't like overthinking it, and now it's just purely enjoyment and fun. And it's an healthier relationship for me with jiu-jitsu.
I think that's super important. I see a lot of people that are like, I've only trained 4 times this week, and I'm like, that sounds super unhealthy for your body. Like to try to get 6 in every week and then, maybe an open mat. Like it's just a lot.
And it's crazy because it's an amateur sport. There is no money in this sport almost, and I know people training like more than professional athletes. I know some white belts who are 30 years old and they train 2 3 times sometimes a day now. And I understand the passion. I've been there, and I know it's a sport that can like suck you in, and at one point it's beneficial. But More people, when they do sports as a hobby, they do 1 time per week, two.
Yeah.
When you say you train 4 or 5 times, people think you're crazy.
I think it's also a method of escapism, right? Like if you're not happy in your life, if you're not happy in your relationship, if you don't have the right kind of support structure, people just use jujitsu as a method of like endorphins. Like they escape, they lose themselves in it, and it's not the most unhealthy obsession, but at some level, any obsession is unhealthy.
Yes, yes. And you gotta admit sometimes at the beginnings when you use yourself in jiu-jitsu, sometimes it's really good. It's really you feel good, like you see yourself progress. You can see your progress almost week every week, and so the artwork pays, and you can feel it, and so it's like a bit. It's not a high, but almost, like it's really pleasing to lose yourself in it. But at one point, I had to get out of it. I had to take a step back.
One of the things that's very interesting for me as like an instructor watching students is that for some of them, this might be the first physical thing they've ever done, or the first thing that they've done for themselves where it feels unique. And they're like, I made my body do that. You know, swept someone. I made someone tap. And it's like, that self-confidence is also part of the addiction and part of the obsession. And I think that's a separate group of people, but I think it's fascinating to watch some people like build confidence in themselves in ways that they were like, oh, I didn't even realize that this was an option. I thought I was just coming for a workout.
Yes, I completely agree. But for me, it did wonders for my self confidence also. When I was a kid, I was pretty shy, and now I won't say I got no shyness at all, but I'm really at ease with speaking in public, with at work. I've got when you go again. I always associate with competition when you go out in front of your club, in front of hundreds of people, and you get your ass kicked. Doing a presentation at works, it's nothing. I've got my ass kicked in 10 seconds in front of even sometimes some friends, some family. So this is nothing. So it helps you build a lot of confidence. Yeah.
So what role does jujitsu play in your life these days?
Uh, Fun part. It's a fun part. And I train I thought 2 3 times a week. I compete a bit. I teach a class 1 time per week. There is a social aspect. I've made some really good friends, like I think everyone, because when you spend so much time with people, when you go to competition with them, when you get injured, and so I meet my friends there. It's a physical aspect. It's also a way for when you roll. Also, you forget about everything. So it's a way to forget about your problems, and you do sport, and you not you hurt, but you breathe yourself a bit. You feel a bit of pain, a bit, and in a strange way, it feels good to feel a bit beat up, and you
Helps you
feel
feel alive.
uh, it helps define. You feel your body. You feel the limits of your body. You feel sometimes when you don't feel any. When I was wasn't doing sports, you don't feel your body. You don't feel you. I don't know. So it's yes. It's. I'm sorry. I'm going all direction, but
No, I look. It's just a conversation, and I'm asking you how you feel about it and what role it plays in your life. So, I think that was a good answer. Like you use it to feel your body, you use it to feel alive, you use it to have fun, and you use it for community. And I think those are all like wonderful reasons to have any hobby. So yeah, no, it didn't feel all over the place. Have you had to deal with any major injuries over the years?
major, I wouldn't say so.
That's good to hear.
I I broke like my hand defending a sweep, and my two metacarps, I say it's called. They broke.
Metacarpals, yeah.
I've got some ligaments on my ankle torn, a rib popped out.
How did
My
you
back.
deal with like the time off from that, right? Because I assume some of those happened during like your
Uh,
obsessive phase. So how did you kind of deal with that?
at first, I was devastated. Like it was really really, really frustrating. But it's like, you know, the 7 steps of I do in English, when someone dies, you got to process the death.
The
It's
stages of grief.
of grief. So first time you cannot believe, and then you negotiate with yourself, and then you got to go to acceptance. And so it takes a bit of time. And when you go to acceptance, well, okay, I got 3 weeks off. I can do something, and it's okay. The beginning was really hard, but what I noticed also is when I was coming back from long layoffs, like 1 month, 2 months, the first session, your jiu-jitsu it's really, really good because you missed it so much. You take so much pleasure, so you're doing the moves you like the most, and I don't know why, but the first training is always like you're really good. You think you think your level, like you're down there, but I'm always surprised with this. So now after a bit of layoff, I was accepting them. Okay, I will go. I will get back, and I will. But the layoff weren't very long. It was like maybe 1 month, 1 month and a half. Some of our partners, like, they blew the ligaments of the knee, and then you got to take like 1 year. 1 year. This I don't know about that.
I mean, that is one of the challenges, and that's also why I often ask people, because everyone has their own strategies for how they deal with the injury, how they deal with the time off. Some people like to sit on the side of the mat and watch anyway. I can't do that. Yeah, same. So what did you do? Like what were you spending your time doing?
So I was taking the time off to do some other things. And I gotta admit, I say it jokingly because now between jiu-jitsu, between doing my comics, between life, I've got almost no free time. I never got free time, and I say I would love to break both my legs and to be in hospital for 3 months and just play video games. I haven't played video games in years, and I would just like, maybe, I say it jokingly, but just a little pause, you know, like an excuse to do nothing, because I'm always trying to work things out. And
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I actually want to spend a bunch of time chatting with you about is like the art, like the comics, all of the stuff that you're spending a lot of your time doing. And you wrote a really interesting blog post about how BJJ saved your art,
yeah,
and I think that's a really wonderful story. Can you share like
yeah,
how that happened for you?
but it's a bit what we told a bit earlier about making mistakes. There is two aspects. First, it was the creativity, so it's another aspect. I used to draw a lot, and I come from comics, and I come from like metal, and so I love the cool covers of metal albums, you know, the demons and the strange lands, and I love the comics.
Do you have a favorite like cover of like a specific album? Is there any like cover that stands out to you?
Oh, those death metal ones. Let me see, let me think about it. Like the Left Hand Pass for Entombed, for example. I will think about it. Right now, I don't have.
Yeah, that's okay. What I'll probably do is I'll grab some of the like when you think about it, you can
Yeah,
send them to me, and I'll like put them up in the like in the
some
background of the
songs
video.
of some I really likes.
Yeah.
And so I was drawing about that. So always the same guys, the comics guys, and the death metal inspired, but it was nothing original. It has been done thousands of times before. I wasn't bringing any new energy, so I kind of I didn't knew what to draw. So I was drawing less and less. And then in my club we started doing open mats, and I remember in the New York hardcore scene, they were doing like they were drawing flyers, and there was one particular flyer that was really crazy that I loved. It was a car crash and Princess Diana getting out of the car with the severed head of the cop, and Spider-Man was taking pictures like it was a scoop, and this was so crazy. And I say, maybe I can do some flyers for the open mats, like, but inspired by those punk rock crazy flyers from the New York hardcore scene. And so I did one with drawing Khabib jumping out of the cage when he was jumping against Dylan Dennis after a fight, like it was a show, the Flying Khabibs in concert. I did one with the scene from the John Carpenter movies. They live when they put the glasses on and they can see all the hidden messages. And so it was just messages related to the BJJ, like Pohada and all this stuff. And it started having more and more ideas, and I don't know, it opened a faucet. And it was, and I had idea after idea after idea. So that was the creativity part. And the other part was accepting to, as I told you, to make mistakes. Like when you're doing a match in competition, you cannot just say to the referee, "Oh, my bad, I started wrong. You know what? Let's do it again. Let's start again. I'm sorry." No, you got to deal with the situation you're in. Try to find a way to make it work and to go to the end of the match. So I remember I had this epiphany in a competition. I said, "But that's the same with my drawing. I got to apply the same mentality. I got to stop at every tiny little mistake, and I got to push through. I got to go ahead, finish this drawing. It's like finishing a match, and the next drawing will be better." And so those two aspects really liberated me, and my drawing is now much more free, much more, I won't say careless, but before it was much more controlled, and now I'm drawing with splatter and with I don't worry too much about if I make like a bit of something dirtier, a splat or something. I just go ahead.
You don't. So I take it from that you don't do anything digitally, because if it was digital, you would be able to just hit the eraser button or hit undo.
Yeah, no, no. I just do some correction sometimes. To clean up a bit, or a bit of coloring, but I try to keep it very simple. So big, like old school coloring. So it's big part of red. Not too much like a modern computer with effects. I don't like it. I respect digital drawing people. Is people that draw digitally that draw way better than me. But me, no, the process wouldn't work for me, because you can just erase. You make a mistake, you make Control Z, you erase it, and you redo it. And so sometimes digital arts feel a bit too perfect. Everything is too polished, it's too nice, there is nothing, and it loses a bit of personality. It's like very, yeah, a bit plastic. I don't know.
Have you considered trying to do digital art? I mean, I'm not trying to push you to do anything, but have you considered trying to do digital art where you just don't ever use undo?
No, no, I try. I had a tablet a long time ago. I tried it, but yeah, I didn't. I tried it. I didn't work for me. But I'm not against it at all. I think everything is a tool. Some people are better with it and are able to produce incredible stuff with it. And now you can't even make the difference, because like they can do some texture, and you think it's like done traditionally, but no, it's so I won't be able to tell the difference sometimes. But me, for my process, for my enjoyment, for my fun, and I like to I like to feel the paper, to feel the, and I like I like to have them somewhere, and I can take them out, I can look at them, I can go back, and they're not just a file somewhere in the cloud, or they exist in the world, you know.
What is it about your process that makes you feel like that texture, that like being able to touch it, to put your hands on it? Like, what is it about that informs your process?
That I'm sorry, can you repeat that forms?
Yeah, like informs. What is it useful? Why is the texture of the paper, or the texture of the medium, or the whatever, why is that important to your process?
I think I think there is a bit also of ritual. You know, you got to take out your stuff. I'm a bit messy, so there's stuff everywhere. I got to clean my space. I take out my paper, where are my ink, my paint. You get in a mood, and you feel the paper. You can rotate it. I don't know. It's like people who make stuff, who make objects. You know, you like to, people who work with wood. I think they like the texture, and there is a bit. I like to feel. I like to feel the object in my hand, and I like the pressure. Um, there is a bit of magic. You're able to conjure something, conjure an image that didn't exist. and I can look at it under the light. I can look at it under the light of the day. I can show it to people. I can, and I like to do paste ups. I like when I make mistakes. Now I like it because I take a white paint and I paint on top of the mistake. So I play with different things. I've got some Japanese screen tones. I can do texture with that. I do splatter. I love to draw with a brush actually, toothbrush. So I dip my toothbrush in ink and I do splatters, or I draw with a toothbrush and every single like
Bristle.
do some irregularities and the it's not so clean. It gives a lot of energy to the drawing.
That's so interesting that you went from being a person who was like uncomfortable with mistakes to like finding your artistic vision in the mistakes and in that like dirty, messy kind of process, I guess.
Uh, yeah, and it's also because some artists I idolized, I idolize, have this kind of energy, like they. I love some artists that do the very precise and very technical thing, and it's the mastery is impressive. But I love also some guys that draw like with a raw energy and
Who are some of those people?
well, the one I really the more impactful for me was Simon Bisley, an English dude. He was drawing more famous for Lobo, for Slain. I got some comics I prepared. Just to, I can show you if you want on the screen
Yeah, go ahead.
some examples.
So what is it about Lobo that's so interesting to you? What's your particular like what does Simon Bisley do that's so great for you?
Like I don't know if you can see this panel. This panel, like
Yeah.
it's very raw. Like there is not so much details, and I love this attitude of how to say it. There is a bit of punk energy in it. Like he just like to draw like the flesh and the big muscle and the human body. If he doesn't want to draw a detailed background, he just doesn't do it. Fuck it. I'm sorry.
You don't need to apologize. Like there's nothing wrong with a bit of profanity.
and I grew up with like the French artist and the ligne claire, where everything is so technical, perfect, and everything is draw. And so this was a bit like it's punk rock music for me. Like it's metal, breaking the barriers a bit. It's aggressive, it's raw, it's in your face, it's visceral. Like the way it draws flesh and veins. It's the hypertrophy. It's the one who impacted me the most, and it's this freedom of and he was the first to do it. The freedom to do it when no one was doing. He got a ton of copycats now, but he was the first one to do that when nobody was doing it, and to have this vision of I don't know, doing your. He was doing his own thing, so it's very.
So how does that like present for you in your day-to-day work, in your drawing, in your process? Like how does that inspiration show up?
Well, I try not to copy him too much because I learned to draw copying him. Now, well, the splatter, I first with the toothbrush, I first saw it in his work. I sometimes I don't over obsess about doing a background. I go with the energy. It's really like I go with the energy. I go with the. Yeah, I want the drawing to convey some energy. That's it has to have some energy. That's the thing I go for.
So the other thing that I thought is pretty interesting about your process is that you self-publish. Like not only
Yeah.
you said you self-publish, but you also do distribution. Like what? Why that choice? That's a lot of extra work.
So I just self-published my first not first project, but my first comic. I wasn't really confident on going to how do you distribution, labels. For music, it's label. For books or for comics, it's like I don't
Like
know,
a publisher.
publisher. I wasn't so sure. I was going to be accepted because this project got some flaws in it. But I wouldn't let it stop it from existing. I say, and I come from the hardcore scene and from the punk scene, and I love the do-it-yourself attitude. Like, don't wait for someone to do it for you. In this scene, you produce your own zines, you produce your own records. You don't need a label. You don't have a label, but you just produce it yourself. Like, do the work. It's so much more gratifying to do something from A to Z, and just instead of just awaiting someone to pick you up and to carry you to the end of the project. And you learn so much, and you get to keep all the creative control. You do what you want, and
What was like the most surprising lesson that you've learned from doing all this stuff yourself?
okay. I hope I learned it by now because for my other projects, I also it's you got preparation. I tend to jump in on the finish stage too early sometimes, and so I prepare all the files, but I haven't checked exactly what the printer told me, and so I have to do it all over again because there was a misunderstanding, and so it's prepare. Talk with the provider, talk with the printer. How do you want the files? Which format? Because I have to do it's already a lot of work, and I have to redo it again. It can be draining. Oh, I thought I was done. Because you're excited. You want to see the finish. So, let's go next step, and sometimes I was going ahead of what I should have been doing. So yeah, preparation. It's a key.
You also said that you also told me that you go like bookstore to bookstore. I mean, what is that like? Like cold calling and just beating the street and going from bookstore to bookstore and asking them to,
Oh, it's
sell your
fun.
stuff.
It's fun. I take my bike and I've checked on Google Maps where the nearest comic bookstore, and I just go there and I say hello. I just have published a comic, and one thing I have the object in hand because I think the object is really cool in itself, and people have getting me good feedback. But some bookstores, they don't want to embarrass themselves with self publication because publishers act like a filter. If you've been published, someone is vouching for you. Everyone can self publish, so it's cool, but also there is a lot of things that are not worth it. So they tend to be really like self publication. So I show the object directly, and it's a ninja with a cutout. I'm gonna show it to you.
This is Le French Ninja, right?
Yes, so it's Le French Ninja, my comic,
Yeah.
and there is a cool thing. Like I did a cutout, for the ninja balaclava, for the face and the ninja. So I show it directly, and okay, this look professional. This look okay. Maybe I listen to this guy, and so some say okay, let's go, let's distribute it, and some others say I'm sorry, but
How does that distribution work? You have to then print them like X number of copies and they give you the money, or do they give it to you after it sells?
no, there's a system when you leave some to them. So some bookstore just took 3, some 5, some 10, some 20, and they sell it, and you in general they take 1/3 of the price, and so 3 months later you call them back. Okay, how much did you sell? Okay, here's your money, and give us more, or no, that's enough. We didn't sell any, and uh, and that's it basically.
That feels like
Eh,
a lot of effort to call up each store that you went to, keep track of them, remember when to
Yeah,
call them,
yes.
and then
So
collect them.
I have a big Excel file. You were telling me about process, so I
Yeah.
have my own big Excel files with all the orders, all the bookstores, all the promotions. you're in my Excel file at online and Beyond the Belt.
Thank you.
And I've got every bookstore and when I have to call them, how much I left them, how much they pay me, how much I have to retrieve. I check this allows me to. If I had to keep it all there, I will forget everything.
Same. My memory's not that good. I put everything in spreadsheets. What kind of promotion did you do for Le French Ninja? I know you did some like interesting photos and like what was the promotional work
Yeah.
and did that work?
Once again, I try to have fun. I did some videos. I ordered a ninja hood. I took my black gi and I ordered like like the ninja boots. And I said to a guy, okay, let's go in my neighborhood and dress as a ninja and run around and maybe it will make fun videos and catch attention of some people. Like there is so much stuff, so much comics, so much video, so much music that you got to grab the attention of immediately. And seeing some dude running as a ninja, maybe someone say, hey, what's that? Let's check it out. So we had fun doing that. I was running around, a bit of shame, so we did it Sunday morning when not too many people on the road, on the streets. Some little skits dressed as a ninja. I also try to do like, again, coming from the punk rock scene, like do some flyers. So I printed a lot of flyers about my comic. So I choose I think one of the best panels and Le French Ninja as a title. And I went to every bookstore, every game store. I could some bars, and okay, can I leave those flyers? But what I realized is like flyers, it doesn't work. I
Not
don't see
anymore. Yeah.
much feedback. People don't with internet. People don't use flyers anymore. Back in the day, in the scene, when you go to show, you took the flyer for the next show, and okay. Now
Yeah.
flyers, people don't care.
And the shows used to have those great like cork boards in the bathroom where at least in the men's room where the people would be taking a piss and there'd be the flyers and you could like look at that advertising board while you were
Yeah,
peeing. And that's I remember those days like before there was internet advertising.
and but it was fun, It was fun trying to find some ways. Where, of course, I sent emails to a lot of every like comic podcast I could in France, international. My comic was published in a local newspaper, so they did a little article when it was released. And I'm trying everything. I'm trying to. It's my responsibility to try to get seen.
Where did you get the idea for the Le French Ninja? Like what was the inspiration for that?
So Le French Ninja. It's first of all, it's a true story. When I was a kid, I trained. I was playing in the street with my neighbor, and some dude came up and said, "Hey guys, you wanna become ninjas?" And I said, "Of course." It was like 10 years old, It was ninja craze. Dad, mom, some guys offer us to be ninjas. We wanna take the class with them. And so we signed up, and I thought it was a fun story because in the end, it was not a real ninja. I won't spoil it, but there was no real ninja in Paris in the 90s. So it was a bunch of. I think the guy was a bit crazy, He was really thinking he was a ninja, so training with katanas, and it was a fun story. And I was doing a comic a bit more serious about with some monsters, and I just started drawing this idea just to get it out. So it was just a side project at the beginning, but it was a project that got more feedback. So I switched it up. Okay, my other comic, I don't got so much. This one, a lot of people, this one is cool, it's funny. So okay, I switched places. And, yeah.
So if people wanted to get their hands on this comic, if anybody's listening is like, actually this sounds really cool, where can I get it? How would they go about getting this from you?
I'm sorry, please repeat.
If somebody was like, "Oh, I really like this," how would they go about getting this comic from you if they're not
Uh,
living in Paris?
so they can go to lefrenchninja.com.
Yep.
I bought the website because the name is cool.
It is cool.
lefrenchninja.com, and you can order it from me. I got a French edition and an English edition, and I already shipped worldwide. I've shipped some in the United States, in Canada. I shipped some in Asia, and I know the shipping is expensive, so I'm taking a cut on the shipping because I think it's cool to see my comic travel worldwide. I think for the comic is 15, and for like 25 euros, I'm sending you the comic.
Wait, have you gotten it? Like, what's the best piece of feedback that you've gotten about it when you've sent it out?
Some people have told me it was touching. They say there is a bit of sadness in it that I wasn't anticipating, and some people. First of all, some people told me the kids like it. I didn't write it for kids, but as it's a story about kids, it speaks a bit to kids also. Some friends told me, yeah, wow, my kids loved it and it's reading it constantly and they just loved it. I say, okay, that's cool. And some people say, well, yeah, it's very funny, but also it's touching. It's there is a bit of emotion in it, and so it was genuine reactions because I try to do the more genuine, to be the more genuine possible, not to be like to tell things cooler than they were and try to be cool. I will try to be like the more factual, the more genuine, and yeah, the reaction were not just oh yeah it's cool, and no, people were really engaging with it. So it was really cool, really cool.
Do you have any advice for any like aspiring artist, like somebody hears this and is like, oh, maybe I should do that? Like, what can you tell somebody?
Well, I think everybody got something to say. I used to be paralyzed about I got to write a story. I don't know how to write a story. At least if not comfortable with fiction, everyone got crazy stories to say, crazy anecdotes. So you can start there. And I think the more important is to be genuine, is to be real, to be as real as possible. Don't try to fake it. Don't try to if you're speaking about yourself, even if you write some characters, you got to write from the heart. Write from. Don't hide the weakness. Don't hide the pain, the shame. Write about that. I think we relate that a lot of times people try to be like always strong and cool, and I think the more touching part is when you fail a bit, the failures, and that's what's interesting. So I think that if you inject a bit of that in your story, if you try to be as real as possible, people will connect.
So basically, just be vulnerable and be real.
Yeah, be yourself. Be yourself with your failures, with your mistakes, and don't be afraid to show them.
That's that's a pretty intense piece of advice. As somebody who's not an artist, I feel like that probably would connect with somebody who's like very who's trying to get inspired.
And I will go further. The more I get old, and the more I think, also in life, I spend so much time trying to be strong, and you want to impress people, and people ask you, "Are you alright?" And you say, "Yeah, I'm alright," and you don't say when things are not good, and now more and more or less, I say, "Are you alright?" I say, "No." I tell about my problems, and when I'm down, I tell it. And if you didn't want to eat, that just you shouldn't have asked. But yeah, I tell about my vulnerabilities. I tell about when I fuck up, when I made a mistake. I try to
Yeah.
speak to people about that. I think it's important.
I think that was one of the interesting things that happened for me when I moved from the United States to Germany is that in the United States, how are you is actually just a greeting. You're expected to say good or okay or fine or whatever. And then you say, and how are you? And they say fine. And then you move on. But in Germany, when you ask somebody how they are, that's like an actual question. And so if you're coming from the culture where you expect somebody to say, "Oh, I'm good. How are you?" And then they're like, "Oh, actually, I've had a really hard day and like this thing happened and this other thing happened." You're like, "I didn't realize I signed up for this." And, like I'm not mad at it. I actually really like it. Like you, I've gotten more like open and vulnerable as I've aged a little bit, but I I did not expect that as like a giant cultural shift, and now I very much appreciate when I ask someone how they're doing or how they're feeling that I actually get an answer.
Yes, I completely agree. I didn't know it was such a thing in Germany because here in France, the "how are you" is also just a way of starting a conversation, you know. But uh, sometimes people are not alright and they say, "Oh, I'm okay," and they move on. Just I think. But
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes when you're not feeling, just say it. Just say to the people, "Yeah, I got some problems."
Yeah.
It feels good. It feels good to.
Ha- I actually also want to talk a little bit about your day job because I think your day job is like quite fascinating. You work for a medical repatriation company.
Yes.
And so the main question I have, I mean, I have a lot of questions, but the main question I have is like, you probably deal with a lot of pretty horrible stuff there. Like, how do you actually, let's back up. What is medical repatriation? Like, just so somebody who doesn't know.
Okay, so here in France, there was a movie about this a long time ago. When you go abroad, you're covered to be repatriated to your country. If you got a medical problem, if it's a sickness, or if you hurt yourself, and you're not in a country and you cannot be treated right, or you need to. So we bring you back. We pay your medical expenses, and we bring you back. Sometimes it's just a new plane ticket. You broke your leg, you couldn't take your plane ticket. Well, we buy you a new one, and sometimes we send private jets to repatriate people. And with jets, we can only fly very, very low because of pressure problems in the lungs. And so we've got some really little cases and some cases that we spend hundreds of thousands of euros to repatriate people.
How do you, I mean, that like, that's a great one. How do you start that conversation? Somebody calls us, you're like, how are you? And you're probably expecting like a very crazy answer.
What you say with the clients when
Yeah.
uh, well, we know if they're calling us, we already know there is a problem, so it's not like tell us what's your problem. No, not so much how are you, but what can I do for you. I'm not in the phone anymore. I used to do it, but yeah, you got someone calling you, and we got sometimes some really distressing cases. You build a bit of an armor, like yeah,
Yeah.
okay, someone got an accident and he broke his boss's arm. Or, yeah, that's sad. But we got some deaths, but when you see a lot of deaths also, at one point, yeah, he died. I didn't knew him, so it's not being cold. It's just a reality. Like doctors are like that.
Yeah.
If you take it all in at one moment, you will like, okay, that's enough. And some people do. Some people that try the job and say, okay, that's I cannot do that. It's too much suffering, too much pain. So you build yourself an armor and a lot of stuff like just yeah, bad shit happens to people every day. So you can it doesn't impact you, but some cases are really, really hard. I've got two, three cases that I've really like.
Can you talk about them?
Yes, when it's some kids, like some people. I've taken a vacation. The kids were the grandparents, and the grandparents went to the sea and taking the kid with the responsibility, and one kid drowned, and you got to speak like, with a grandfather who's taking, and you hear the grandmother crying as they know they lost the child of that child. Responsibility. You imagine the family destroy, the guilt, and you feel it on the phone. That's horrible.
Is that why you stopped working on the phone?
No, not especially that because it's hard, but it's human. Also, like you when you help someone with that, you feel you matter a bit. Even if it's just a commercial relationship with an insurance, you got someone, and okay, here's what I can do for you, and I can take this matter off your hands. Be it the repatriation of the body of someone who died, Okay, I won't pretend. I won't. I cannot take away your pain. I cannot take some things that will make it feel better. But okay, just this matter, leave it to us. Okay, we'll repatriate the body here in France, and we'll pay. We'll manage that, and this you can process your grief and talk with the family. And so sometimes it was a bit. I'll say we received real thanks from people. I'll say so. It was cool. It was. And yeah, he told you also that this is life. When you got some clients or some pretty stupid, not on their part, but stupid situation with dramatic consequences, and you say, okay, life is really just hanging on by a thread. Like some guy is 30 years old, he go on vacation on Turkey, is in the resort, and you want to jump on the sea, and the hotel hadn't put a warning sign saying shallow waters. The guy broke his spine, 30 years old, on a wheelchair. He was one vacation in Turkey. He get back on wheelchair for life, and like he cannot even move his arms, and that could be me.
Yeah.
I've jumped in shallow in a shallow pool without knowing it, so that could have been me. So it's and when you do a bit of stupid stuff, like I don't know, I surf, and sometimes I feel a bit scared, and now I realize I could. Okay, I cannot be reckless. I have to. This body can break very easily, so I gotta.
Do you feel like that this job has made you more careful, or do you feel like that's just age kind of being like, well, I'm not as resilient as I used to be when I was younger?
There is a part of both. I think when you age, everyone ages, and everyone realizes like when you're young, you're immortal. When you were a kid, I remember I say, well, if I fall from the window, I just got push myself from the wall, and I will be fine. I won't splatter on the ground. If I fall on an elevator, I got to jump right before it crashes, and I'll be fine. And you really feel it's that way. You feel invisible. And the more you grow older, the more you realize, well, people that die, and death become real, and pain and suffering become real. But being confronted with it on a daily basis in the job, on a constant rotation, yeah, uh, it's dangerous.
Do you ever have to say no to people? Because, like, there's a financial component to this, right? Like, do you ever have to be like, hey, sorry, we can't help?
So it's never the financial component, it's the contract. The contract say, in case of A, we can do that. For example, if you're drunk and you do some balconing in Spain, balconing in Spain is when a drunk tourist jump from the balcony to the pool, and sometimes they miss the pool. Well, this we won't go. It's not our responsibility to cover it. We cover like an accident. If you're drunk and getting in fight in a discotheque and you get your ass kicked, and we aren't going to cover it. And some more complicated stuff. Suicide is not covered.
That's also tough.
That's tough because it's like the most dramatic moment of the life of someone. But if someone goes all the way to the other side of the world and try to commit suicide, that's not the responsibility of this contract is not for that. It's to bring you back if you got an accident. Suicide is not an accident. So sometimes it's tough. Sometimes it's tough to be the well, you're
The
the
messenger, right? The
yeah,
person who has to deliver that news.
and that's the parts that maybe people, the new guys, when they come, it's saying no. That's more difficult for them sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got a really tragic situation, but it's not covered.
What happens when you guys run into like a, a situation that's like physically dangerous, or there's like political unrest or something? How do you deal with that if that somebody's in, like, I don't know, a country in Africa
Uh,
that's like political, where there's political unrest or
with that
militias?
part, all the contracts got a line that says we cannot intervene in countries with political instability, with war, with a natural catastrophe. But that's just we always try to intervene. But if we cannot, we cannot be legally responsible for failing. For example, if there is a country and there is a coup or dictatorship and the airports are all blocked, well, we can't send you a plane. So you can say, well, because people don't understand. For example, like 10 years ago when this volcano in Iceland like blew up and all the air traffic in the world was practically stopped, people say, well, I want to be repatriated. Well, but there's no plane. But yours insurance, send me, but we cannot, there's no plane. And people didn't understand. Well, but I pay for the insurance. Yeah, but it's not us, there is a volcano. Like, so this protect us. We always try to intervene, but if you cannot, we cannot be brought to court afterwards. We couldn't. We tried, we couldn't.
Are there any like weird misconceptions about this job or about medical repatriation that you feel like you want people to better understand? Or was that one it?
Mm, no, I think what it made me realize is when you go abroad, you got to check if you're covered or not because here in France, we got the culture of we almost don't pay the medical expenses. We're good covered. So some people before they used to go to the end of the world and without coverage. And in some countries, here you go to the doctor, it costs you 30 euros and you're refunded. You go to Miami, you call a doctor, it's $4,000 and you're not covered.
Yeah.
United States, I'm sorry, American, it's crazy.
I agree. It is crazy.
I've seen some bills. One night in the ER, it's minimum $10,000. I don't have $10,000 in my bank account.
There are a lot of people who get bankrupt from, an ambulance visit for something that ends up being nothing, and it's horrible.
So I would say, yeah, if you're traveling, check how you cover the board for medical expenses. Some country you find with 10,000, but if you go to the US, if you go to touristic countries, you gotta have a minimum $100,000 coverage minimum in case something bad happens. So, and also one thing I realized, I don't know if it's the culture of my particular company I work with, but I've seen the directors sometimes go far and beyond what they're supposed to do. So I've gained respect for them. And some cases were really horrible, and we didn't have to cover it, but they say no. Okay, this one is it's too awful. We're gonna cover it. So I was a bit surprised at first, and I say, okay, that's in such a cold world, that's impressive, and in such a cold world as insurance, that's impressive. Sometimes some people choose to go and
Above and beyond. Yeah,
open
I
the
love that.
contract and then intervene. So that was really really cool and heartwarming to see.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like we could use a little more love in the world. So anytime I hear something like that, I'm always like quite happy about it. Is there, you clearly do a variety of things. You do like, comics and this like drawing and like aside from martial arts, and like you've clearly seen a lot of humanity from this job. Like, is there any advice that you wish everybody knew?
About something
Anything.
of no, I think general advices. I am not. I think everyone gonna find their own. I feel comfortable maybe giving advice on something like on jiu-jitsu, on drawing because I know it, but in life is too. I don't have any advice in life. I don't know. Everyone will find his own way. I think.
I feel like that's a big good piece of advice. Find your own way. I think you kind of just in trying to avoid it, you might have like nailed the answer to the question. What are you excited for in the future?
I'm excited to I'm excited to do my next comic. I've got to stop procrastinating, finding other side quests. I'm doing I gotta draw that and that. I'm just pushing. So I've got to kick myself in the ass again to start really producing my next comic.
Do you have any thoughts on what that comic is, or do you not want to share it?
I've got two projects, and I've got a BJJ comic that is almost written, but I got to rewrite it. But I'm not sure if I have to jump in it right now, or if I first do a small bit project before to sharpen a bit better my tools, because this was just my first comic. Maybe I would like to do one more, because I think a purely BJJ comic, there hasn't been anything of really notice, and I know it from the inside. I know comics. I know, and I think there's something that is really cool that can be done. Not just too realistic. A bit like the mangakas do, like like mangas. They took liberties. They so yeah. I will. I really want to do BJJ comic, and I will be with a bit of my also not so tame, a bit with punk energy, a bit not too polished, a bit punk rock.
And what's the other one?
Oh, the other one, it's a bit embarrassed. It's a really funny but embarrassing story that happened to me. I think that was the story I was the more ashamed of, and I think it's in the process of owing it, and it's the thing that I was the more ashamed for many years. Now I'm able to laugh about it. I don't want to tell it right now,
Then don't tell it. I'll be
but
more than happy to
I
look
think that
forward
it
to
will
it
be
when you.
really funny, and it's a way also of if you show your what you're ashamed of and your weakness, and it loses its power, like, and it will be a way to give it to the world, and then okay, I can finally put that behind me and not be ashamed of it anymore, and maybe be a bit proud if I transform this story in a project and in a comic, and it makes people laugh, but then I can go from shame to be proud of it. That's a way to grow.
That sounds like a wonderful way to own your life and take ownership of the things that have been challenging for you. And it goes right back to the thing you said earlier about just being vulnerable as an artist.
And I always feel like when you tell a story to friends and you're laughing, the cooler story, the better story, as a story where you're the jackass. Not the story where, yeah, I did that and I did that and that. Yeah, okay, keep it. Tell those stories to the girls. But when you between buddies, and you, oh man, I fucked it up, and when you tell those stories, that's the one where you laugh the more, and that's the coolest story, I think, when you fuck it up, when you were stupid.
I'm genuinely looking forward to like seeing this. I know it's probably quite a number of months away, if not a year or two, but I'm looking forward to reading it and seeing what this story is and how you kind of take ownership of it. Is there anything that you'd like to promote besides? I mean, we talked about the comic, we
Yes,
talked about the website. Like, what is it? What
yes.
else can?
Well, just Le French Ninja. We talk about it. So it's black and white. Uh, it tells about the walkie training, about the Paris of the 90s. You can read the beginning on my website. Uh, if you like comics, you can check it out. I've done some poster for the competition. Let me show it to you.
Sure.
So there are those guys here in France doing a new format of competition inspired by the breakdance battles. So it's like a category is 7 people. It's from 7 to smoke. It's called in hip hop, and the round have only 2 minutes and 50 seconds. There's no advantages. The one who loses get out, and a new fresh guy enters. And the first to 7 wins the category. And so I know one of the guy, and he asking me to do some artwork, and I did some posters. So this is from one I did for they're doing a competition in Belgium.
Yep.
So I draw Tintin
Yep.
getting his back taken by a guy who is really young star BJJ in Belgium that's going to compete. And and people gave me so much good feedback, so I decided to print some posters. I've got 50 posters. I got this one.
Are those A3?
A3, yes, and I've got also. Sorry. And I did also from Akira, the famous Akira image, because Akira is like one of my favorite things in the world. So this represents like the competition, the 5 guys waiting, the guy entering, and the guy already there. And also I did this one, and it got a good feedback. So I just received those, and I'm sending it to the people who order me.
What is it you like about Akira?
Oh, it was. I tell about it in the comic. It was such a big shock. I saw it when I was 10 years old in the cinema, because the father of my neighbor thought it was for kids because it was drawn. In France, we didn't have this culture of manga for adults. So he was innocent. He brought us in see Akira, and you've seen Akira?
I have not seen the whole thing.
Okay, so it's really ultra energetic, ultra cyberpunk, ultra violent. The music is crazy. You take it all in the face, and the story and the craftsmanship. For me, it's the modern masterpiece. There was older masters. For the 20th century, I think it's Akira. And the manga. When you see the manga, I cannot understand how some people were able to produce so much pages of so much detailed artwork. Everything is perfect. Everything is cool. The characters, the stories, the implication, what it speaks about. And it was such a shock that it impacted. It was like branded on my brain since I was 10 years old, and I've done a lot of projects with Akira. I've done some illustration. I did for fun. I did a custom Akira kimono. I don't know if you know that's a Kaneda jacket. Like there's an illustration with Kaneda. He got a red jacket, and with a bike. I reproduced like the stickers from the bike on the tent, like it was the bike wheel.
Nice.
So I love to use Akira as an inspiration.
I clearly have to go back and watch the whole thing all the way through.
It's just 2 hours. It's a masterpiece, and it's incredible.
Cool. Gorka, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. This was like a super interesting conversation. I feel like I got a really good insight into your comics, your process, like some of the stuff you've learned, and I just really enjoyed our chat.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for listening. If you have any questions about creating or distributing comics, feel free to reach out to Gorka. And if you find yourself near Paris, France, contact him directly for a role. You can find his contact information and websites in the show notes. Please support your local artists where you can, and you can support Gorka by buying a copy of Le French Ninja at lefrenchninja.com. I already have mine. And as always, thanks for your time and attention.